So we're back with the 5th episode of the podcast. I think it's the 5th episode. I'm not really sure. We're back with our coughing friend over here, diagnosed with the bubonic plague.
He was
over here, where his name's Cameron.
He was ripping her too loud.
We got,
bro, that shit.
We got the second guy over here, the man of the hour.
Gotta be here somehow.
The expert on serial killers and the process by which serial killers are made.
I just know a little bit about serial killers.
And that's gonna be Lee. And then we have our third guest, a new appearance. A new legendary Pokemon from out of the wilderness. The man who drives a now blue, what is it, Cadillac or
Blue Ranger.
Blue Ranger, previously a red Ford Explorer. His name is Alex.
How you guys doing?
And I'm William.
Old Alexander.
Old Alexander.
He's Russian.
The man who drives the truck.
Oh yeah.
And so this episode we're going to be talking about the legendary, Toes. As mentioned before, not toes, serial killers.
I mean, serial killers, you gotta think, there's gotta be a purpose to why they do what they do. It could be something as stupid as, can you go buy eggs? I do buy eggs! And they come home and slit the wife's throat.
I think that's just domestic violence.
Yeah, man, I think that's just... I think that's just a man pushed past...
What's the difference?
He's just pushed past his fucking brink, man. He's like, I can't have that anymore.
I think we definitely should talk about the most famous serial killer of all time. The Hash Slinging Slasher from the canonical SpongeBob episode by not the same name, named The Graveyard Shift. No, I'm not serious.
The greatest serial killer of all time.
The greatest serial killer of all time.
The purple fish.
No. Who do you actually? Okay.
The big G.O.D.
Bubble bath.
How many times?
No. I actually do want to ask. What would you consider a serial killer? We all know like the stereotypical one that someone who's gone ahead and killed tons of people. But would we categorize like someone like school shooters into?
No.
As you wouldn't count a school shooter as
there's a different mindset.
There's like singular events. Usually, a lot of times with like school shooters, like a lot of built up, pent up emotions of just being bullied and like not feeling good enough for themselves. A lot of serial killers do it more like a sensation or like a driving force because like it makes them feel a certain way.
Yeah, but that's not a necessity. Isn't it just like a serial killing? It's a serial event, like.
Usually they have like rituals and things like do every single time they murder somebody. Like it's very, very like structured.
I don't think that's how. Like even then, I don't think that's how the police categorize it.
Well, it could be a number of things. Like the person could have a reason to do it, the way they feel, or something happened in their past, or it could just because they're flat out fucking insane.
I think there's something to it though. Like I think like William was saying, I think there's a difference between someone that just says, I'm going to rob someone or I'm going to shoot up a school versus a serial killer. Like, I think for you to be a serial killer, I was kind of actually saying this already, but, like, there's got to be, like, something else behind it. There's got to be something that, like, makes you want to repeatedly just fucking kill people.
It's rumored that they almost like, those people that keep growing forever and ever as a tumor on part of their lobe in their brain. It's speculated that there's a tumor on a certain part of your brain that inhibits like empathy and forces you to do like things because you simply can't feel.
Well, that's
psychopath.
Yeah, that's psychopaths.
It's psychopath.
I think there's multiple different reasons for psychopathy. But
sometimes genetic, sometimes
it could be something as simple as like
trauma-induced.
Like your friend beat you like at school or something.
What are you talking about, Freddy Krueger?
Sexual abuse from your parents.
Yeah, or like the reason that makes someone want to do these horrible things could be like something as simple as like, oh, my friend has a nicer car than me, he has more money. Jealousy.
Yeah, maybe always being like pushed down and feeling like you're
jealousy.
Like you're on the bottom all the time. Maybe
it's like a one-time motive makes you do something that makes you feel better about that motive, and then you just keep wanting to experience that over and over again. I don't know if that makes sense. But
well, no,
I think so. Yeah, maybe
you get what I'm saying.
Like, you're just like a regular person until you commit the crime, and you kind of feel like enlightened by it.
Like I said, like there's a motive for the first time, but then the killing takes over as the driving.
You kind of like unlock some type of potential in your brain. Like,
pause for a second. You said
it becomes pleasure.
I've heard a lot of times, a lot of I was watching the Ted Bundy tapes last week.
Yeah?
That's why I'm interested in talking about it this week. Wait, what?
Continue.
Okay, whatever.
Continue.
No, he was talking about when he was in prison. He was talking to a lot of the other murderers who were on death row with him, and every single person he talked to, I don't know if we didn't trust him as a reliable source because he's a fucking serial killer. But a lot of times it was linked to like pornography and always like how people are like oppressed and like treated as kind of like objects rather than human beings.
And if you want to describe who Ted Bundy is for those who don't know.
He was a really big serial killer between like the 70s and 80s. He killed something like 35, 40 people. All young women.
And there's still bodies that police haven't discovered today. And he's like revealing some every once in a while. Just
he got the electric chair in 89.
Yeah. I know. I remember like back he was revealing some.
He was revealing it in an attempt to save his own life.
To extend his own life.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of them like, they only care about he's very narcissistic personalities. I think.
I think we do like as we were discussing earlier. We have to delineate between psychopaths, sociopaths, and serial killers because psychopaths and serial killers are not the same thing.
There's a lot of crossover.
There is a lot of crossover.
Yeah. I know the difference between psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yeah, but I just want to say, like for example, a lot of CEOs and those big businessmen, like I probably. Yeah, they're usually psychopaths because they're so driven to
sociopath.
It could be either or.
No, they're different.
Well, no,
No. I mean, it could be either or.
Both benefit
for the CEO.
Yeah, both benefit you from the business thing.
Yeah, I know they're different.
I see what you mean, though.
Yeah, but because our system is the way it's set up, and this may be this is a lot of what people who critique about capitalism. It's so precisely set up that. If you are raw, just untamed, not output, but logic, and you know as much as you can, and you can figure out the system and game the system as hard as you can, then you are able to succeed. If you are able to just work hard over and over and over and work your ass off, then you will succeed in our system. And that's sort of what they're doing. They're not held back by emotions or worrying about
and
what they're going to do on a date. And they're worried about succeeding.
And if something could happen that could affect that, say, something happens in life that prevents them from getting their whatever drives them to do what they do, they fall apart into pieces. You know what I mean? And that could bring on why they go crazy. Yeah. It's
well, I think this is just for the people on the podcast. You distinct between the two. Both of them have a disconnect when it comes to empathy, but sociopaths are typically very, very, very smart. They're always ranking, and they got 140 and above in IQ tests, geniuses. It's just because they lack that certain part of their brains. Psychopaths are usually driven by different motives to actually act on crimes. It's hard to explain, but they're more active to actually do horrible things. So sociopaths, usually narcissists, they only want to have self-gain and not necessarily always want to murder people.
Yeah, there's a lot of sociopaths casual.
The way I've heard it,
as you're saying, they're very versatile. They have purpose. They do things to do things. Yeah. Psychopaths are kind of a little bit. They're not as clear cut, and they are very.
They want you to be scared.
They're very sporadic in what they do. Mm-hmm. But both lack empathy.
The way I've heard it described is. Psychopaths have empathy. Psychopaths don't have empathy, but sociopaths do have empathy. I've heard it said before, the sociopaths do have empathy, but they just suppress it. They just say, I don't care about my empathy for other people.
I don't know.
I don't know
necessarily they can just shut off that factor in their brain though. I think
they don't have.
I think they may be able to have it.
I think they
for certain things. So they'll hyper focus themselves on things they care about. They'll really pinpoint specific people, and everyone else around them they don't care about. It's just a select few things that they do really care about, maybe. But I don't know if they can turn it off. Turn it on.
It might be they have it, but they ignore it.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but it might be that they don't have any, or it may be that they have some, but just ignore it. I'm not sure myself. You want to comment on the issue, Ken?
No, I'm just trying to
listen. See, I think, we were talking about the on and off thing. I think that depending on the situation, what they're doing or trying to do maybe they don't care what happens, even if it affects them, or they want something to happen for attention, or they want people to feel scared and like they don't care what happens. Yeah. They just want the attention. Yeah. Because some people are driven for like, I want to scare the shit out of you. I want to make your life hell. So some psychopaths, or other ones are like, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I still want to do something bad.
You think they're trying to maybe mirror what they feel? Because maybe a rough upbringing, they want people to see them. Yeah. You know? You think that's what they're doing? Yeah. They want to mirror themselves so that people
they want people to know, like, hey, listen, this is my story. Don't screw with me type thing.
Yeah. Oh, sort of like a legacy.
Yeah.
They want to be remembered because they weren't remembered beforehand type of thing. Yeah.
And they want people to know what's up.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense. It really ties into like Ted Bundy in particular. Yeah. A lot of things he did. Like you're just doing being his own lawyer. A lot of things that he'd be like, it's really out of field. He did it for the attention, so people would remember him for who he was, like the Ted Bundy. Like he always wanted to be the center of attention, and he always wanted to be charismatic, and for people to always, view him a certain way. He won though.
Did you hear about the? Well, not here, but did you? I read something somewhere where it said that. Like, often, if a lot of the details on serial killers' crimes are published, and all the finer details, like how things are, how they killed the body and how they did their ritual and laid it out, if that's made public, then a lot of the time, people will do copycat crimes. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting issue of why, even though it does happen that serial killers do it on their own, there's also a lot of copycat serial killers that...
It applies to a lot of crimes.
Yeah. It applies to a lot of crimes.
If you want another example of something, this is kind of similar to murder, obviously, but when 13 Reasons Why came out, there was... Yeah, not a good show. There was suicide spikes, especially in teenage women, I think. I don't know. There'll be a link.
What do you mean? I don't know. There was this thing that happened, but I don't know that it happened.
Because I don't know the exact. No, I mean I don't know if it's like that, exactly teenage girls or the exact numbers.
Oh,
but I no matter what, there was some sort of suicide.
There was a suicide spike. Okay, interesting.
I think it was in teenage.
Dude, that's terrible. That thing that.
And it was significant.
That these things have such influence over us.
And to be fair, that show had a really bad outlook on suicide.
I actually did not watch the show.
It was really... It glorified suicide hard. It made it seem like the chick successfully got a sense of revenge on a bunch of people because of those tapes. I don't know if you know the premise of the show.
I know the premise of the show.
Yeah, the show portrayed it as if people were emotionally affected, just like she wanted. To me, that's glorifying it. I think they had a really bad outlook on suicide.
There is the interesting thing of when people say suicide is selfish. Where
I don't know if it's selfish. It can be.
No. A lot of the time, when people try to I don't know. Maybe this is just a stereotypical movie thing, or something like that I saw somewhere. But from what I remember, a lot of the time when people are when cops are trying to dissuade people from committing suicide, they are what's it called? They say, hey, your life is valuable, but at the same time they also say it'd be selfish and you take... you're stealing from the people around you and you're making them feel bad by you killing yourself. Right?
Any take on that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's necessarily selfish. I don't think people do it with a selfish intent. Most of the time, it's so varied because so many different reasons why people commit suicide. Sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes, I think a lot of the times it's just because people don't feel wanted or loved. Mm-hmm. Even though they definitely are, they just don't feel it. And then, you know how you kind of get trapped in your own thoughts sometimes. You think, well, no one's giving me these sort of emotional respect or response that I want. And so they feel like they're kind of by themselves for such a long period of time, they don't feel like they're worth it anymore, and they feel like a burden for people. Mm-hmm. When meanwhile, other people are always going through their own stuff.
I'm just talking about the persuasion to not talk people out of it.
I don't think it's a poor way of persuading people to not kill themselves by saying, it's like saying you're in the fault here, like because of what you're doing.
No, it would be bad if you did kill yourself, because all these people would feel bad that you did kill yourself, and therefore you have value in their eyes.
I'm
not sure if people, like, if you're suicidal, you're gonna take it that way though. If I was told that, I would take it personally as, you know, you're doing the wrong thing. You know, you're in the wrong because you're trying to kill yourself, and that's a selfish act.
Well,
you should be more selfless even when you don't feel like you're wanted.
I think the key here though is that, like, I think where the argument that William brought up, like where it's even coming from, is the idea that if you're suicidal and you want to commit it because of what will happen after, I think that's where this idea of selfishness comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Not from the idea of suicide, but from the idea of someone thinking, I want this to happen when I kill myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think I almost agree with that in a sense.
It's like they want...
If they're looking to get something out of it and not just killing themselves, then
how can you tell if someone wants to get something out of it, they're going to kill themselves? Though?
You can.
Unless they have a note, right?
We're just all talking...
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course, it's even then it's hard to dissuade people or talk people out of suicide. And even when people are suicidal themselves, they're very indecisive with everything they do.
It's very... I think it's very selfish, especially like we were talking about just now. If you're doing it to
harm
people,
to make people like pissed off, you know what I mean, or to like say when the person commits suicide, when they're dead, whatever, they're happy because you're causing no pleasure to the person, not in like a sad way, but because now I'm dead, so now you're gonna feel bad and do what I wanted you to do.
Oh, like if a kid commits suicide because a parent pisses him off and like, hey. Yeah. Mom, Dad, I want to piss you off, so I'm going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Eat
it. You know?
Eat it, kid.
That's definitely selfish, yeah.
Yeah,
that's very selfish.
I do want to link back into serial killers. It's very common theme that serial killers try to make, like, even their first or second kill, and their first few kills, appear like a suicide.
Huh. I've never seen that.
I've heard stories of that where, let me search it up, serial killers making kills like a suicide.
Attention seekers.
Yeah. No, I just search up, brings up, what's this? Hiroshi Menu, suicide website murderer. Oh, apparently it's a Japanese serial killer who
persuaded people to kill himself?
Yeah. Suffered from philanthropic psychosexual disorder. Was translated into being unstable to achieve sexual release in the absence of performing of strangulation.
To each their own, I guess.
Yeah, it's a kink. That's what I'm saying. A lot of times the serial killers it always comes back to like a sexual drive.
Really?
Like they get off to it. Like, Ted Bundy's thing was he would strangle them and then he would dismantle them. Like he would like rip their flesh off with his teeth.
And then what do you like?
And he'd rape them.
I was about to say, like, I didn't want to, I wasn't even doing that for joke. He's fucking the corpse. Like,
yeah, like
was it the corpse? Was it before they were dead, or like?
I think it was a bit both. I think he'd strangle them until they passed out. He'd rape them, murder them, bury them, go back to the site, rape them when they're deceased, like necrophilia.
Maybe he didn't want to admit it. Maybe he was he didn't want to admit he was necrophilia.
Right before the end, he admitted he'd gone back to some sites, and when he bring it back to his narcissism.
Okay, Ted Bundy. We all have our.
Yeah. I'm not glorifying Ted Bundy here. And then when the Green River Killer, an even more prominent serial killer than Ted Bundy, his numbers are in the hundreds.
If you want to talk about probably the most,
thing is, he wasn't even a smart dude. He was just a guy that drove an 18-wheeler, and any truck stop he'd pick up a prostitute, and same thing, strangulation, strangle them. But he was more into the necrophilia act. And he had his own religious ideology where he'd actually have specific burials with specific symbols like a crow's head or like dead fish and things of that nature.
You know how
and he's known to come back months after to like have sex with that corpse as they
you know who Joan of Arc is, right?
There's like maggots and shit in there, man.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Oh my God.
He had to clean out the maggots.
Well, at least he did that, I guess.
It's fucking
being a little bit sanitary.
Yeah, but Ted Bundy's actually one of the reasons why they actually broke the cast Green River Killer was because he was giving them hints into the mind of a serial killer, and he was like, "Hey, a lot of serial killers have rituals, and they tend to go back to their previous kills to kind of like relish in the memory of it."
Okay.
Because another thing that Ted Bundy did was at the trial, he actually made the officer because he killed some frat girls, and what happened was he on the stand as he was questioning the officer that witnessed it, he made the man go into like extreme detail about the murder and what the person looked like, so Ted could get a sexual satisfaction in the courtroom because he could relive the experience in his head. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So he said a lot of serial killers like relish and like they want to go back to what they've done because they're proud of it.
Okay.
And so that's actually how they caught the Green River Killer. They went back to a previous site in which he murdered someone. They found the body. Didn't disclose it to the news.
Okay.
And waited, and he actually came back.
He's just chilling
to have sex with the corpse.
Oh my
and they
God.
caught him and they arrested him.
Huh.
Did they catch him like midway? Like he's like
no, he came back to the site.
He's like warming up the corpse, and then
I have no idea, dude. I have no idea how it happened. All I know is that's how they caught him. But
that's
yeah.
I was actually just gonna say I said earlier Joan of Arc. Everyone knows him. Do you know him, Alex? Alex, do you know who Joan of Arc is?
Yeah.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, the French, it's a French saint who during the 100 Years' War, or maybe it was the 7 Years' War, I forget, who was famous for being a woman and going into battle. She was 11 years old, give or take, or something around that age, where she was very, very, very young. Her mentor and the person who supported her, really, was some count, like Count Montferrand or something like that. Anyway, this guy, he was absolutely terrible. He was a pedophile, and I believe he also murdered a lot of his victims.
like kids.
A lot of kids, yeah. And this was back in the 7 Years' War or the 100 Years' War, back then, and it was near the end. So, and this guy is praised as almost a saint figure. So you can look back, yeah.
Oh,
how old is this again? Did you say?
The 7 Years' War or the 100 Years' War. I'm not sure which one.
So like
during Joan of Arc.
A lot of saint people touching a lot of kids.
It's really messed up. No, Joan of Arc was a kid and was
in the 90s, dude.
Joan of Arc was a kid and was one of his victims who he molested. But Joan of Arc was made a saint, and it's really weird that whole situation where previously in the past it was really praised at how these people would do these things, and it wasn't even kept under wraps because it was somewhat acceptable. Or it was honorable that your kid was taken in by the Count and raped by the Count.
Do they know that kids were being raped?
The parents did.
The parents knew the kids were being
it was sometimes honor. It was so messed up.
Yeah.
It's actually ridiculous.
Kind of like an offering? They're offering their kids?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was an honor to the family.
Exactly.
It was messed up. Yeah.
It's like people, we keep bringing this up because it's the topic of the day, but my uncle told me a story, and this is a true story. We went at Thanksgiving, so quite a while ago. There was, when he was growing up in Collingwood in his neighborhood in the 1960s, there was a man, an ice cream truck driver, and he would come around the neighborhood in the summertime, and it's a true story. And obviously, the kids would be like, look, the ice cream truck. And finally, they come where he'd come so often, the parents met the guy. He was a really nice guy. He seemed like, he wanted to be this guy's friend. He was a really nice guy. And then, I'm sure you all know where I'm getting at. One day the kids got too comfortable. They went in the truck. The second the kids got in the truck, he started the engine and took off. They found the truck down by Georgian Bay, the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Burnt to shit. The truck was on fire. The driver was nowhere to be found, but the kids were piled up in the truck. Dead body corpses, their favorite ice creams in their hands.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, that's awful.
That's fucked up.
He placed them there is what you're getting at?
Yeah.
How many kids did you say?
I think it was 5.
Oh,
Fuck,
fuck, dude.
Dude, that's messed up.
And
did they catch the guy?
I that's all I heard. But from what it sounds like, he obviously wanted to send a message or a picture, and
it kind of brings back that kind of ritual mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that ritualistic, like when you kill somebody, like you use a certain set of things.
They knew that he knew the kids so well that he knew their favorite ice creams, and he put them in each of their hands.
Mm-hmm.
That's messed up.
That's the thing with a lot of a lot of sociopaths. Like they're very personable people because they can like put themselves into these roles.
and once they get the pleasure they want, like the guy probably skipped town, went to another town and did the same thing or something else.
You're probably right, dude. Especially that type of profession. I mean, it's not too hard to just pick up
kids
another fucking truck. I hate to say it, but it's true. Like it's really. I mean,
kind of brings back.
If you play a little off the grid and just grab another truck, I mean, that's a rough thing.
I think these type of people, like
from these people, just get away with their whole life.
This is just me assuming. These type of people, obviously, they go around doing fucked up shit until they have their pleasure. Then they go somewhere else. New name, new start.
It's like doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Or they get
until they get their pleasure, and then the one day comes where they get caught, and then they most likely probably kill themselves.
I think that's what ultimately happens. Like they get too comfortable and they get closer and closer, and every single time they get a little less.
They feel invincible.
A little less organized about it.
It's all about the rush, right?
Yeah, and they think if I do it a little sloppier this time, I can still get away with it. Like I'm the best. Like they can't catch me.
And you hear stories like that before, like not like people like an ice cream truck. That's fucking like so typical, right? And of course, kids will fall for that. It's just really creepy, is what it is. And then you hear stories about like a garbage man or whatever. Like grab a kid, throw it in the crusher of the truck.
There have been stories about how like historically people have been caught. Probably the most famous one, and even probably the most famous serial killer of all time, Jack the Ripper. Is one of those stories. And exactly. It's probably the most famous story. Actually, before this, before I searched it up earlier today, Jack the Ripper, I was thinking, wait a second, was he actually a made up story by an author, or was he a real guy? And then I discovered, no, he's actually a real guy, which is messed up.
I didn't know that till you just said it.
Yeah, he's a real guy. Yeah. See, that's how mythical he is. He made a legacy for himself, a legend.
People still talk to him.
Like he thinks creepypasta.
He thinks, he thinks it's a. People think it's a story.
I thought so.
It makes sense.
It's so mythologized, and
he killed like hundreds of little girls.
And that's exactly what they want. And it's messed up, and they never found him.
I think it's interesting to note that a lot of the times, a lot of these predators always prey on like young women.
Mm-hmm.
You find?
I can see why though, because like when you think stereotypically of weak people, obviously, I'm not saying that's true, but
like physically weak.
Just no, like in every aspect. I mean, not like just stereotypically. I mean, like even like emotionally, and obviously physically, young women is fitting that book pretty well. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just kind of how it is, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, they were also encouraged.
Like kids in general.
Do you think there's more to it? I don't know.
Yeah, kids in general. But I'm like even back then.
Maybe there's more to it. But
back then, it was also encouraged. Like 18th century. This was just right before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Right before this entire thing happened, and up until that day, women were encouraged to be like starve themselves half to death, so that they look thin. They were fitting in corsets that...
Well, they're still doing that now.
Yeah, they still do it now, but back then it was more, like, encouraged. Like, they were put in corsets...
It was more normal, I know you mean.
That, like...
Then it was,
they'd literally have to starve themselves for days on end to fit in them. And there were so many stories about people dying for starving themselves to death. Just because they had to... Like, rich families starving themselves to death. Because they had to fit in.
Actually?
Yeah, people starve themselves to death.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it kind of ties into, like, the whole,
this mentality.
Like, the kind of, like, I don't really want to say, like, the patriarchy, but in the sense that, like, for the longest time, like, women were just, like, so suppressed and, like, treated as objects. I think a lot of the time, these serial killers get into their head as women are just objects. Because if you look at the media, for the longest time, they're always portrayed as objects. You know, they're always wearing these really small little dresses, and in porn, you know, they're treated so poorly, and they're just kind of thrown around, and you do whatever with them.
I'm glad.
Even in the 18th,
you're glad about that.
I know. That's I'm glad in the modern day.
Sorry, that was just.
I'm glad in the modern day that has been pretty well eliminated. Like women
There's
have...
still a lot of weird kink porn.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Obviously, no doubt.
There's a difference between it being...
I mean, like, publicly...
There's a difference between it being an actual representation of society and a fringe outlook that we all know is in a controlled environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at here is that up until very, very recently, women were regarded as second-class citizens, if not lesser than animals. And so when Jack the Ripper, he mainly preyed on young girls because he thought of them as objects, and he
played into it.
He didn't perceive them as humans. Yeah. And so what he would end up doing was he dismember little girls because I think it has something to do with the fact that he didn't like how women were progressing.
Like, maybe it's like mentally, it doesn't impact him emotionally as much as if he killed like a man. You know what I mean? Like you said, I mean, if you don't think of them as much the human, it's like it's not as bad to you.
It was lamb to the slaughter.
Well, again, it just brings me straight back to Ted Bundy and now.
It all ties into the mind? Yeah.
It all ties into... Because his entire childhood, all he would see women on TV... they're wearing lipstick, they're trying to impress dudes, they're in these short little dresses, they're just being made out to be an object that you can attain if you have enough money and wealth. And all the time, all the pornography, you'd go to different porn stores, there's always girls being strapped up and beaten and
He just sounds like an incel.
But maybe that's it, guys. Maybe like
I think it has to do with the dehumanization.
Maybe a big obviously a big aspect of it is dehumanization, but maybe it's like the process in which it's done, which is like this mental gymnastics about how you value people. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Like the way that we weigh out people in society, maybe like that part of their mind is what's really being affected.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the time with these serial killers, it's also oftentimes it's not a family member or like someone they know personally that has really just pissed them off or whatever it might be that has caused them to switch and now go and make their first kill.
Like Alex said, it's like there's a tipping point. Like
there's a tipping point. No, they make their first kill, and this is also just like what Lee said earlier. They make their first kill, and then they like it. They savor it. They want to have that feeling again. They want that rush, just like you said, to like get that feeling one more time, get their hit.
That's right, and then they stick to it because it pleasures them. And the thing that I think is most fucked up about it is, you go around town or whatever, and you don't know these people. It could be some random guy walking his dog or driving down the road or whatever. These people could be anywhere at any time playing a casual role until the time strikes that they want to make their move, and God forbid for some reason it's you. Because these people probably don't think straight. Whenever they get a hit of pleasure, they're probably just going to go for it because they don't care about consequences.
They don't care about the person. They don't care. Like, they just want the fucking...
Yeah.
They want that kill.
Like, say there's a guy walking his dog. He's just trying to fit in. Like, say he goes around the corner, kills the dog, and then gets in serial killer mode. That's what I'm getting at is they're anywhere and everywhere. So it's not like... it's not like there's a gang of these people. There could be, but you know what I mean, right?
It's just people living on the edge.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like there's like a gang, like a biker gang, for example, like that hang out in a clubhouse.
No,
it could just be. It could be your fucking next door neighbor.
Yeah,
somebody who lives a casual life.
Some people don't even act on it, right? But they got the mindset. They're getting close to that mindset we were talking about.
And they keep turning in their head like, I could do this. They start thinking out. They may come close with somebody and they realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And there's always just like kind of like one defining moment where they just kind of go for it, and then it happens, and then if they don't get caught, they start enjoying it, and they start thinking, I can do that again.
And what's terrible
easy this time? Why not next time?
What's terrible is that this is mythologized through time. They become myths. They become legends in their own right. And like we discussed Jack the Ripper earlier. There's also like people like Richard Ramirez. You know who that is? Famous.
Sounds familiar.
Famous American serial killer. He's he did hot burglaries where he killed people. He'd other names: the Night Stalker, the Walk-in Killer, Thunder Valley Intruder.
These are quiet.
This is just what
quite the names. But I switch them by Lego-size. They get these almost like fantasy type names.
Like I've heard Richard Ramirez in an Eminem song before. Like they're so publicized throughout all of the through media, and then
they're kind of like fantasized through the media.
Yeah, and it gets other people who want this fame and attention. It's like celebrities aren't in their business for because they have something to offer. Usually, no, they're usually in their business because I want fame and I want fame bad. That's what celebrities are in it for.
Well, that's what you kind of see with this kind of like clout generation, where it's all these new age rappers and stuff. They're always flexing off their chains and their cars and all their wealth because they want to be known for, hey, I got here and I made it. Mm-hmm. This is me.
The sad thing about the serial killers seeking attention is that they get it.
Yeah, they get it.
Every single time. People always will say we shouldn't give it, we shouldn't report the names, but seriously, they always get it. The victims never get any real attention.
Because it's good for the media as well. Because the media loves it.
They win. The problem is the serial killers win every single time. For mass shooters and all that stuff, they win.
Because the media capitalizes on fear.
100%.
And they use the fear in order to gain publicity for themselves, so they gain views and money.
Yeah.
And in doing that, they push up and they put the murderers on a pedestal, and so people start to idolize.
It's not interesting if it's just normal news. Like that because
no one wants to hear, reality, the local news.
In reality,
people deli lost all its bread.
Not many people care about like just regular news. Oh, Miss Trainer's cake shop is doing great today. That's the end of that story. Like, no one cares about that stuff because it's not news. It's literally not news.
Yeah.
It's only news when something happens. And what does the media want to happen? That they can cover it over and over and over again and do it to death? School shooters, mass shooters, serial killers, things that keep happening. Especially serial killers because things keep happening over time and they can start developing the story over time. Conspiracy theories, where like the Trump one is a big thing, where they... War is a big one too, because there's news stories every day.
Anything that makes people scared and not feel comfortable with their position.
It's all of their media nowadays is fear mongering. I like news. It's really hard to find them, but there's some good news sources. There's very far and few between, and they're not very popular either. Where it's just straight laced news. It's cut and dry news, and it's nothing else.
Well, typically,
it's all sensationalization.
If people go against the media, typically media sources try and make them kind of like bash them, and dissuade people from watching different news stations that actually show the truth of things, because many news stations are very politically biased, or they get paid out by certain companies.
I mean, whether they realize it or not, I mean, everyone's a little biased. Like,
everyone's a little biased.
Well, obviously, everyone's a little biased.
I don't think there's many mainstream reputable. I would say any mainstream reputable news sources. Like,
you try to minimize it as much as possible, though.
I can't think of one though mainstream that isn't very biased.
No, they're all biased. Obviously.
No, like where it doesn't hurt. Like I literally cannot think of like a pretty objective mainstream source. Maybe I'm just not thinking hard enough.
No, I can't think of anything either.
I most of them are either like a little right, or like most of them just have that left bias, or like you see a Trump article and it just hurts. You're just like, come on, man, just say what the fuck he said.
But again, anytime you see any sort of any type of news stations that are for Trump, it's just like.
It's so
way out of proportion. They glorify him, and it's like
Trump is the worst because like both sides are so sensationalized. Well, I honestly cannot find objective information on the fucking guy.
So like we were talking about earlier, like how the news reports of serial killers, they win by getting the attention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like. You know, back in the day, like in the 60s and 50s, when you watch TV, you know, you'd see 10 minutes of a car commercial and explaining to you every nut and bolt of the car. Like a cereal brand commercial, or, you know, like a loaf of bread. Back then, it was, you know, they would explain to you in pleasure, like, you know, you want to watch the news, you know, oh, cool, this car came out, oh, look, you know, milk is on sale. That was a big thing back then.
People were more engaged.
Nowadays, I don't even like watching the news because I'm either hearing about a fucking murder or like a storm, or, you know, we're at war again or something, some bullshit like that. Gas has gone up.
No, I mean,
you know, like I don't even like watching the news. watching the news does not bring me pleasure. It scares me.
My mom has this nightly ritual of just watching the 11 o'clock news every day. And she watches it every single day. And it's not even like she cares about it anymore. She just has to do it every single day. And my dad, he can't stand the news. You know what he calls it? He calls it, who's killing who in Toronto?
Yeah. You see, this is the thing.
That's about it.
We were talking about how if they get their attention, they win because they want attention. In fact, a few years ago, there was a news report about a serial killer who went into the news station and lit it up because they weren't reporting murders. So he basically went in there and said, "Okay, you guys don't want to report me? Fuck you! I'm taking over." So now that's that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bad in this world, and you hear about a murder every day. But this could be a possibility of these serial killers. Maybe there is like people who form groups of just fucked people who go around doing this shit, and if they just want attention because it pleasures them. So maybe that's why you hear about a murder every day in Toronto, because these groups are going on. Kill. Report us. We're going to keep killing people, and you better report us. And if you don't report it, we're going to come to your news station.
Mm-hmm. I think the point here,
it's like terrorism,
is that it's just like it sells. Like it doesn't even matter. The news stations know that like as negative as it is, negativity just works. That's what people care about. People don't care about good things happening as much as they care about people dying or like because it's just like. And I'm not like saying this to be a fucking. You know what I mean? Like pessimistic or anything. It's just like the truth. Like, what strikes you more? People dying or a couple people had their lives saved?
Well, that's the thing. It's like the same with school systems. Like with kids. Like, what do you want to hear about? Some gossip? Like, some kid, like, for example, like, oh man, this kid got an STI from fucking too many chicks. And like talk behind someone's back. Or, oh yeah, this guy, he just got a really cool new job. Like, no one gives a shit about positive things in your life. It's always negative. They always want to hear. Right. They always want to hear slander on people.
Yeah, it's true.
I think it's kind of institutionalized from when you're young. You always talk poorly, and you always see these negative things that come up, and it's interesting because it's something that takes away from your life and makes you feel less shitty about yourself.
I think it's also a bit of hardwired, sort of in our mind, that it's sort of like going back to our natural instincts. What's more important to us with our natural instincts? If things are going good or if things are going bad? Our brain will really try and emphasize the bad because it wants
to protect you. Yeah.
It wants us to improve the bad situations, but it won't care about the good because it doesn't want us to become complacent in our situation. But right now, nowadays, we have so much good going on that people are still becoming complacent because there's so much good. And there's not a lot of bad we'll expect. So what these news companies are doing, they really have to play on that bad. And the bad is the worst of the worst of the worst that's going on. It's not, this guy's homeless. Look at this one guy who's homeless. That was the talk of someone's house burned down. That's the talk of the town. Oh, there's a wildfire in this. That's a 10-second story. There's a wildfire in Calgary. I don't know. And they burnt down a forest. That's a bigger story than some random dude down the street's house burning down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I'm saying. The media kind of, just from watching the news or hearing the radio when you're younger and all the gossip of that, it keeps like building onto the emphasis of negativity. And I think subconsciously your brain like picks up on the signals that it's a normal thing to really like put emphasis on negative things. And I feel that's why a lot of people always focus on the negatives in life, because it's just such an institutionalized thing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want to, if you think of like Africa, all the people there, from what you see, typically they're quite happy in what they do. They're always trying to focus on the positive things because there is just so much negative around them. Mm-hmm. And there's no news stations that they always look to that are constantly, saying like, oh, people are dead here, although this and that. I'm not saying there's no crime, there's definitely crime.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But typically, like the average family is a lot happier than in North America because they struggle, but they don't have the influence of the media.
Well, it's just what I was saying. Just exactly as I was saying in the last episode. Struggle. Yeah, you weren't here for this one, but that one but it's still an important thing to say. Struggle is important for human beings, no matter what it is. Struggle is how human beings survive and thrive. actually, because
How you feel satisfied.
If someone, there was an interesting study a while back for kids who think that they work hard and kids that think they're smart. The kids that think they're smart, on average, did worse than the kids that think they're a hard worker. And it's really interesting because those kids who think they're a hard worker really had to struggle for what they did.
Mm-hmm. Is it just what they are or what they think?
I believe it's what they've been told. And they took like the average set of students. Like they took an average amount of students.
Well, I think it ties. I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say I think it ties into what you're saying with like in regards to struggle and how humans like they thrive off of struggle and how they can benefit from it.
Yeah.
As you're saying, there's just like so much positivity and like just a good structure typically in North America that we start to like shift the negative energy from just like trying to survive. As in Africa, they have to get their own well water and hunts typically. All that struggle that they use in that regard in a positive way, we're now shifting that off into something completely out of our control because we just need something to have like instead of doing a mundane task that doesn't challenge you whatsoever, you want to do something challenging because you feel accomplished for it. The people here, since we have so much stuff that we can do and so much luxury, we can shift that energy into something else that we can't control because we think it's a bigger task. And so with the negativity...
Sorry, there's just a noise in the background.
Just a noise in the background, yeah.
I thought someone was knocking. Anyway,
but yeah.
No.
I was just going to say that there is, of course, with struggle, that there is a breaking point.
We need a bigger fish to fry.
No, I was going to say there's a breaking point that, of course, we're not saying go to the logical extreme and say, okay, put kids under extreme amount of struggle,
extreme duress,
extreme duress, and like beat them every day. Don't pull the Michael Jackson method.
Fly them all to third world countries.
No,
that's not what we're implying.
I'm not saying the Michael Jackson method, how the Jackson family, their dad beat them relentlessly, and their dad
I know that, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that's the Jackson family.
He wanted them to be perfect.
He wanted them to be perfect in every single way. Mm-hmm. That's how they got so good at being pop stars. But for every family that tried that, only one succeeded, and it's the Jackson family. Yeah. There's so many like different things where it's happened, and like the kids have just committed suicide. People have just committed suicide. They're done. They've gone through so much struggle that they say, "There's no point. I'm stuck in despair here." Yeah. And even then, if you look at the Jackson family, there's so many mental issues that go on with that family. Michael Jackson alone. There's so much information about Neverland Ranch that just came out.
Yeah.
And all that. Obviously, there was rumors for decades, but...
That's the key word, struggle. Struggle is an endless cycle. It's part of life. Like
too much,
the second you get out of bed...
Then when you think of those families and the kids, like, they're forced into success, and they have to do this or they're going to get another beating.
They're already born rich.
Yeah,
basically.
And I think that's kind of what like develops these mentalities of like I need to do everything to perfection.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of time with psychopaths.
But and then there's that very fine edge of you got to do really good, but you can't go overboard. Like when telling this kid how to do it and educating this kid, you can't go overboard and put so much pressure on that they break. Mm-hmm. There's that right amount of pressure that doesn't break them. And then I think even linking back into serial killers, that there are people who, like, this pressure all around them, their breaking threshold, I think, is much lower, let's say, for when, and they have a different way of expressing it, where they have all this pressure coming down in life, and they don't have the same facilities for, like that normal people have. Like, sociopaths and psychopaths, they don't cope with their issues in the same way using empathy and all those things with other people. Their breaking point is so much lower that one thing that pushes them over the edge can put them into a spiral that just leads them down into a dark, dark, dark path.
Mm-hmm. And they feel like when they commit these atrocities, they gain some sort of
humanity from it.
They kind of like feel a reprieve from how they feel typically, and so they want to keep doing this to keep relieving that stress that they feel every single day.
A lot of the time, these people are actually perfectionists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's a big thing about about psychopaths and
they need to have things.
Everything must be perfect, pristine, organized in the perfect way. If your salad plate, if your salad plate isn't, or your salad spoon, knife, whatever, isn't perfectly placed next to your regular fork in perfect order, they have an absolute panic attack and just break down.
It's like I understand exactly what you're saying.
Of course, there's different levels.
Yeah,
but
it's like if you don't park your car in the driveway exactly the way you like it, or something fucks it up, absolute meltdown.
If there's a millimeter off, if a bird goes and poops on your car, you're absolutely done.
Scrub that bitch clean.
You gotta scrub it clean. And the entire every single inch, you gotta check it over, see if there's any residue on any other part of the car. Yeah. Every time you get home, you gotta scrub your tires to make sure they're clean. Yeah. And it's just this obsessive compulsion that these people have, and that make them. Pardon?
I think the key here is that there's a connection, right? Like there's
I think it's the way you develop. I think what you're trying to say is like the way they develop as a child, and the way like the mannerisms they're taught, and how they're taught to deal with stress, and how far they're pushed kind of links into their almost like kind of like their psychosis.
It's the way that like we don't think about this, but like not in the traditional sense of outlets, but like the way that they deal with certain aspects of life. Not like when I say outlets, I don't mean like stress and stuff. Just like basic actions, like washing your hands, like you said with OCD. Like it becomes so much more in a way that we wouldn't get. It's same with like it's the same. It all ties back to things like serial killers, where it's like the action of doing the unthinkable is much different than how we can perceive it.
I think at the same time, it's also when we do it, like if a regular person goes and kills a person, it's such an intense moment for someone where it's like, oh my god, I just took another human's life. Mm-hmm. I'm going to feel bad for a long time, if not the rest of my life. I feel like a failed human being. Mm-hmm. While a serial killer does it, and they're just going through the motions of a regular day. Like this is a regular Saturday for them. Maybe it's like going out with the boys, going to kill someone.
Maybe it's just like the other end of the rush. That's the key here. Is that like it's some people won't get things like spicy foods. They'll associate it with a negative. Like there's a negative connotation with it. And yet you can still kind of see how there's some positive to be had there. Yeah. Whereas with murder, I'm obviously not saying it's a positive thing, but like that adrenaline rush that we could probably think of the the pure intensity of doing something like killing someone. Maybe that's just all that's in it for them is the positives that could be had, but it's just amplified. Mm-hmm. I think that could apply to a lot of mental disorders. So,
that's it. Anything else?
I think maybe like to add on to your point, like kind of like an outlet. Like if you can't like. Say you have an aggressor in your life, like a parent that like beats you or like rapes you, for example. Like the only way they can outlet all that anger and pain that they feel is to implement that same pain on a different organism. That's why a lot of times they end up like hurting dogs and cats.
That's what I was gonna say.
Killing or abusing their younger siblings,
wife abusers and stuff.
God only knows what could cause the reasons for these kinds of people to do the shit they do.
They want other people to feel the kind of like the pain that they felt. Yeah. And in a way, once they hurt someone that way, they feel like a relief.
A lot of the time,
that's how they were treated, and now that they can direct that pain and suffering to someone else, they feel that reprieve and then adrenaline rush, and that's why
they go to a more like they go to an extreme. They want to top what was done to them.
Mm-hmm. There's also an escalation.
Like they want to feel like they're better than their abuser. Yeah, like, I've overcome this.
I've beat you,
and yet they're doing what they did.
I'm on a higher level.
They're just repeating the cycle.
I get what you're saying. That rings true. I mean, I don't know the numbers or anything, but I think like wife like people kids who are abused and all that stuff. Some of the time, if just things go the way that they go, they tend to
have aggressive personalities.
Yeah, or possibly. think it's okay, but like have that idea in their head that
and then like if you have a problem,
they can do something like that.
This is the way you deal with the problem.
That's what I'm getting.
Oh, and so it's sort of like kids who abuse
normalizing it, I guess.
Kids who are abused often end up abusing their own kids.
Yeah,
I guess it's what Lee said. It's like a type of normalization. He put it best there.
Yeah,
it's normalization.
Have you heard about the there's usually escalation when it comes to school shooters or serial killers or anything like that, where in their early lives they'll often kill bugs or they'll kill bugs en masse, and then they'll also kill animals sometimes, and they'll start escalating, and then they reach that point, like they've killed dogs, they've killed things like that, and then they get to a point where they finally hit their break, and then they start killing humans.
Yeah, you think like once they start taking lives of lesser life forms, they start thinking,
but no one ever pays attention to that. No one ever pays attention to that. No one ever pays attention to that.
Some stop.
Let's look at
that's
of course some stop.
My dad told me that he knew a kid growing up who would do that sort of thing, like kill wild animals, do things like torture snakes, drown them, do stuff like that. I guess it's kind of like, maybe there is like a bit of a process to normalizing it. Maybe it's not just an extreme situation that pushes them over the edge. Maybe just for some of them, there's more to it. Like you said, like it's building up to killing someone, and then killing someone and raping them, and then eventually, kind of tying back to what Will said, it just becomes going through the motions, trying so desperately to relive what you once had in doing that.
Like that?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat.
Same boat as serial killers?
Time to leave the room.
Yeah, the Titanic's gonna sink now. No, I 100% agree with what you guys are saying. Like I said before, God only knows what causes it and why they do it. But yeah, it could be, it's like I said earlier, something as simple as my friend has a nicer car than me. I'm jealous. I'm gonna make people realize, fuck his nicer car. Speaking of that, not to get off topic about cars, but when my cousin was going to school, there was a guy who had a nice car, he had a beautiful BMW, and he would show off and get the girls' attention. And my cousin at the time was working construction, and his only vehicle was a company work truck, which was an old beat-up, Ford work van. And the guy in the BMW would be stupid and always ask to race him and shit. And so one day my cousin, I'm not saying my cousin's a serial killer, this is just an example of how easy it is to bring something on. So one day my cousin fucking backed into his BMW, completely crushed it with the big van, and then the guy at the BMW just walked away crying. And that could not, I'm not saying that as an example for my cousin getting mad. Mm-hmm. The guy, it could be something of passion or value that could trigger someone to do these things.
Yeah.
I don't know or care.
Like a breaking point.
Yeah, exactly. We touched base earlier. But it could be anything under the sun that triggers these people to do this kind of shit.
Yeah. Or I think a really prime example of causation would be the Iceman. He was a mafia hitman in the 70s and 80s as well. And what happened was during his childhood, his mom and himself were abused by his father relentlessly. And at school, he was a very meek, shy person, and kids would always pick on him, and he'd always get beaten up at school until one day, he just had enough, and then he started I think there was 4 kids he worked at a bar or something, and he the old metal rungs that you use for hanging clothes on in your closet.
Like coat hangers?
Yeah, no, the actual bar you put coat hangers on.
Oh, I know what you're talking
about. Yeah, anyways, what he would do was he took it off, and then he just beat these 4 guys almost to death, and then he started to realize that moment, it kind of clicked in his head that it's always better to be the abuser than to be the abused. And then he got into that mentality of he understood why his dad did these sorts of things, and so he felt the safest when he would beat people because he wouldn't be the one being beaten up. And then he accidentally ended up killing. So he had a hair trigger temper, anything. because that's what solved all his problems. Those kids stopped bullying him and stopped treating him like trash. So he perceived that as, hey, if people are being shit to me, and I just kick the fuck out of them, I'm never going to be bullied again. This is going to solve all my problems. And then he accidentally killed someone. I forget how it happened. I think he just bludgeoned them to death accidentally. And then he kind of saw killing people as a normalization of ending problems for himself. Rather than just beating kids to leave them alone, he figured, if you kill people, then it's a permanent fix to that solution. It's a permanent solution to that issue. And then he started going into mob killings, and he just completely dissociated death and empathy from that. But the craziest part about him was that he had a wife and kids and people he actually cared about, and he was just a normal guy on the outside. But anyone that crossed him, he just fucking murdered them.
It's a weird situation. A lot of these serial killers, they look if you read their everything else and ignore the killings, they just look like regular old people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Richard Ramirez, one of the more famous serial killers, he had a wife for I don't know decades.
Well, yeah, Ted Bundy was a fucking politician. He was running for office. He had a girlfriend at the time who was helping raise his girlfriend and their orphan kid. He just looked like a stand-up guy. But...
He adopted an orphan. He looks like an amazing kind of person.
I mean, look at Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, U.S. politician.
I was waiting to make the Ted Cruz joke.
It was perfect time to slip it in.
How long are you waiting for that one?
They just look like normal people, but I think they're going to go to the extremes of their mentalities and how to fix the problems that they felt.
Yeah.
With the Iceman, he was a completely normal looking person, and it's just in his mind that he went to the most extreme, and the way to solve his problems was through killing.
Okay.
And so, I think with a lot of these people, once they hyper focus on that idea in their head of this is just the best way to solve a problem.
Yeah, and then they stick to it.
Yeah, and then once they it's just those ideas just turning in their head, and no one telling them that's just a bad thing to do.
It's like cranking it up to a higher dose.
Yeah.
Right? Once you go there,
I think all of us can agree. Once you start thinking about something, it hooks in your brain. You just can't stop thinking about that thing.
There's just those ideas,
especially traumatic events or such vivid memories. You start thinking about them, and there's emotion associated with it, and then you start, you can't get that mindset out of your head because no one's telling you different because no one can read your thoughts, and then eventually it just leads to acting on.
Yeah.
And then kind of turning it to their own ideology.
Yeah.
And kind of making it to their own sort of religion.
It was regular day life.
It's it's just for them.
It sounded like you just summarized the entire conversation right there. I think that was a really good summary, actually.
Yeah, that was actually really good.
I think that's about a good time to round up the conversation.
Yeah, I'm just gonna relate to you one more thing.
Yeah, you want to add on one more thing?
Exactly what you said. I'm gonna say the same thing. It's just a regular day routine. It's brushing your teeth or taking a shower in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
For them, their regular routine is when they kill someone.
Mm-hmm. Just like your mom, your routine, just 11 o'clock, watch the news.
Yeah.
Once you go to it.
Once you're in it, you can't get out of that cycle.
We talked about, there's things that set it up, and then for those people, once they click into it, they're not clicking the fuck out.
It's an endless cycle.
Yeah.
You want to say bye? Actually, you know what? We'll start on this side of the table. Cam, you want to say bye?
Oh, I don't got much to say. This was definitely, at least in my opinion, a bit of a different pace for a podcast, different type of topic. It was a fun one. It was more philosophical, I guess. I liked it. I like talking about psychology and stuff. It was cool.
It was an interesting topic. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it. I hope to hope you hear my voice and other ones too. It's interesting. It was a good time, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're glad we're here for your first time, Alex.
First of many, maybe.
Yeah, maybe join in.
Juicy stuff, man. I liked having you on. It was actually really cool.
Not all political in here,
Not always.
Sometimes we can talk about some fun and just interesting things.
Maybe I'll come up with a topic.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about scandals with car companies and
I got a lot of automotive stuff.
Ford is real interesting. Alright, that's for another episode. Lee, you want to say goodbye?
The guy who did come up with the topic, speaking of coming up.
Yeah, that's a good...
Did think of this one.
The man himself.
Amigos, until next time. I had a good time. Hopefully you guys did too.
Yeah.
It was good.
I don't know if we have that many listeners, but if you want to suggest topics to talk about,
Absolutely.
give us some feedback. Give us something. Just if you want things to be talked about, or if you want to I don't know, just give us some suggestions. We can always talk about certain things, do our research, and then come back with our own opinions and views on it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Anyway, I hope everyone's enjoyed. I'd love to see you next time. And I think that's the end of the video. That's it.
Nice little short podcast.
Yeah. See ya.
Maybe an hour and a half.
I've Will, and we're done.
Take care, guys.
Smell you.
What do you mean smell you?
It's just my saying, dude. Smell you later.